So for this launch, I made 16,364 between the pay in full and the 4 monthly payments. That was so helpful for me, just especially because I hadn't had a live launch for a while because of my cancer treatments and everything like that. So that influx of cash was really helpful for my business. And honestly, it was a confidence booster to be like, oh, I can do this again and I can do it better.
Hi, I'm Charlene Oy, dietitian turned business and marketing coach, and you're listening to the Nutrition Business Show. I've been a dietitian for over a decade, generated millions online, and we've helped thousands of health professionals. So if you're looking for a smarter way to grow your nutrition practice and create online programs to scale your business more sustainably, then you're in the right place. Hey, so welcome back to the Nutrition Business Show. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Now, today's episode is gold, and I really mean it. I brought on a private client of mine, Alison Tierney, a cancer dietitian, and you're going to be blown away by our conversation. Alison is an experienced dietitian with a big heart for the people that she serves, and simply an incredible human being. We talked about how she navigated her cancer diagnosis as an oncology dietitian, the different programs and offers she's set up in her business right now, which has allowed her to scale to 5-figure months, and broke down the stats for her launch in May for her hybrid cancer program, which brought in a total of $16,000 in revenue. We touched on mindset shifts that she's made going from a solopreneur to outsourcing support in her business and how this has allowed her to spend more time with her loved ones. Look, I wouldn't lie, I tried so hard to hold back my tears when she talked about what happened back in April this year. So just with a warning, you might want to get your tissues ready as well. So without further ado, let's get into Alison's story. Hey, Alison, thank you so much for coming on to the Nutrition Business Show. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, Charlene. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, awesome. Now, I can't wait for our audience to hear a little bit more about your journey. So why don't we kick off by you talking a little bit more about what you do as a dietitian?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Alison Tierney, and I'm located in the United States in Wisconsin. And I am a board certified oncology dietitian. So I work primarily with cancer patients, but I am also a mama of two, and I'm married and work for myself in my own private practice. And gosh, wow, what do you want to dive in from there?
Why don't we kick off and talk a little bit about what inspired you to start your private practice? I believe you worked in a cancer facility before starting your practice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not sure how much you know about this about me, Charlene, but I actually have a degree in business and leadership and management. So when I went to college, that's what I did. I played softball in college, and that was the track I was on. And I was actually on a track to work in the financial field here in the US. And I turned that job down because it just didn't feel right, which seems so crazy to think about looking back. It was at that time that my now husband, we were together, and he was saying, I really think that you should go to school to be a dietitian. And I was 21 at the time, and I was like, oh, it's too late to do that, right? Because I had just finished college, and I thought, why would I go back and do that again? I did decide to go back and do that. So I went back to school, became a dietitian. And during that experience, I asked all my professors and advisors to get as much experience as possible in oncology nutrition. And the reason for that is really because cancer has burdened my family for generations. My mom's a 2-time breast survivor and 1-time thyroid survivor. My grandmother passed away from lung cancer. My grandfather passed away from liver cancer. My other grandmother was a uterine and breast survivor, and my godmother had breast cancer as well. So just lots of cancer. And I wanted to know, how could nutrition play a role and to help reduce their risk of developing cancer? But also even more so, how could it help them during the course of treatment and into survivorship to help reduce their risk of recurrence? And so that's really what I went to school wanting to do. Ended up getting a job at an outpatient oncology cancer center, which was like my dream job. But from there, the cancer center that my mother was treated at, which happens to be in my hometown, was looking for a dietitian to start, grow, and run their oncology nutrition program. And I got the job. And shortly after that, I was really enjoying my experience there. But my husband was working a lot of hours. And this was for 4 kids. So I was at home hanging out. And so I actually just started my practice. And it was more so something to do that was fun. Also, patients were reaching out to me from other cancer centers to work with me, but I couldn't work with them inside the cancer center that I was already working at because they weren't being treated there. So I started just hanging out, talking with folks outside of it, started growing this practice. And it started growing a lot more. I got to the point where I needed to decide whether I was going to go all in my private practice or really cut ties and go all in at the cancer center because I was doing a little bit of both. There were some leadership changes within the cancer center and so forth. Perhaps you could say, a lot of people say that it was bound to happen because of my business degree, but like I decided to go all in. And so really I am utilizing my business degree and owning my own practice. But really that's what all started. It was wanting to be in oncology nutrition and then having this desire to help as many people as possible. And I feel so lucky to be able to say that I get to work with people from all over the world to help them through their experience, whether it be treatment or survivorship or anything else like that.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that, Alison. I don't think I've heard you talked about your whole journey before. So it's really nice to hear that. And it must have been so hard in the beginning, just seeing family members after family members having the cancer diagnosis. But I do feel just from hearing your story as an outsider, it felt like everything just fell into place, how you became a dietitian, worked in the cancer area, and now just fulfilling a bigger purpose, I feel, serving people all around the world who may not have access to oncology dietitian where they're based, or maybe they've fallen through the cracks or finished a treatment. They need someone who can support them post-treatment. So you have absolutely just seeing you flourish and working together in a private capacity, Alison. We worked together 6 to 9 months, I think, and just watching you flourish and do what you do. It's definitely been an honor of mine as well, walking alongside this journey with you. So congratulations for all that you've achieved in this short time.
Thanks so much. And I think about, I don't know, a lot of listeners could probably relate that time where I was trying to figure out going from like business degree to going to be a dietitian and figure all this out. I didn't know what I was going to be doing with my life, right? I felt, gosh, what am I supposed to do? This financial area doesn't feel right. And I can tell you this many years later is that I feel like I'm really exactly where I'm supposed to be. And that feels really good. And when I was going through that first college degree of business and finance, I was like, I don't know, I'm good at this, but I don't necessarily want to do it. And now I feel like I'm just in that right place. And that feels really good among all of the challenges that it brought in the beginning.
Yeah, well said. And I do think that we all really need to find our deeper why so that your job and what you do just doesn't feel like a job anymore. It feels like you're fulfilling that deeper purpose within. And it's not always about the money at the end of the day. The thing is, I see so many practitioners coming to us. They either have changed careers or changed niches because they found areas that they enjoy doing. And I just watch you flourish from the outside. You really have so much passion and empathy for your clients that you work with. And yeah, you just light up every time we talk about what you do. Now, Alison, you have been diagnosed with breast cancer at the age of 33. Am I right?
That's part of my story that I guess I didn't include in that first part.
Yeah, that's okay. And I thought I'll, kind of just move on to talk about this because I feel that this is also impacted on how you grow your business and how you work with clients as well. You just bring that additional layer of knowledge, expertise, and empathy for someone going through cancer treatment. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about finding out that you got the diagnosis. How did you feel? And at that point, were you already running your business? So tell us a little bit more about that part.
Yeah, absolutely. So I had left the outpatient cancer center at the end of 2018. And that's when I had decided that I was going to, I say work exclusively in Wholesome, my private practice. And I say exclusively because I'm not really 40 hours a week because I'm between kids and everything like that, but exclusively work in that. And so I've been doing that for a few years. And then in May of 22, when my youngest was actually only 14 months old, is when I was diagnosed with breast cancer. Long story short, we found a lump after finishing breastfeeding at an annual exam. Really didn't do much about it originally, but then because of my extensive family history and working in this space as an oncology dietitian and working with a lot of really young breast cancer survivors that were my age or close by, I wanted to investigate further and ended up asking my physician for more workup, and then turned out to be long story in there, but turned out I had invasive ductal carcinoma, which is a type of breast cancer. I ended up having a double mastectomy with something called deep flap reconstruction, and then went on for 3 months of chemo and immunotherapy, and then another 9 months of immunotherapy. And so I used to tell people before cancer, that I had worked with hundreds of patients that had gone through what they were experiencing, but I had never been in their shoes, right? I usually use the term that chair. And what I'm referring to when I say that chair is like the chemo chair, right? I hadn't sat in that chair. The way that I share that is, and then why I told patients that is because I wanted to try to empathize with them, but also understanding that I couldn't fully understand what they were going through, right? I had helped not only my patients, but been a caregiver for my mother as she went through treatment and so forth. But then I became that patient in that chair. So it has transformed my practice. When I was first going through everything, I had the greatest patients in the world because they were all cancer patients and knew what it was like to receive this diagnosis. So I received a lot of grace from them, was able to take some time off for my surgery. During that time, I was really exploring, do I want to stay in oncology nutrition? Do I want to continue to do something that is so near and dear to my heart, but also very raw and somewhat painful? After a lot of debate, I decided, as you can imagine, because I'm sitting here talking to you, is that I decided to continue on. For right now, this still feels really good. I don't have any plans to leave the oncology space, but I'm a person that will say never. But it does feel really right to be here. The reason why is because of what you mentioned before, is that whole level of empathy and perspective that I can bring to my experience with my patients and talking to them. So yes, we are talking about oncology nutrition, but oftentimes, as many dietitians and nutritionists that are listening know, that nutrition is not just physical. It is far more mental and emotional and all those types of things. So being able to bring that experience to it, I know a lot of my patients really appreciate that because they tell me all the time. And I also have that very close experience of when I went through chemo and I had a hard time eating, and what helped me, not only the tactical recommendations that we have as dietitians, but also I had that personal experience to bring it together. So that's been really helpful and transformative to my practice. It also helps me learn how to talk to my audience, right? It's interesting because I am my audience, but I'm not at the same time, right? Because I had that different experience of having a lot of professional skills to help me through treatment. So actually, when I was going through treatment, a lot of the information that I knew. So for example, I was having a really hard time eating at one point. We all know the importance of nutrition, especially when we're going through chemo and so forth. But I was able to convey to my husband, yes, I understand the importance of eating. I know I need to do it. I'm having a lot of trouble doing it. Can you help me with this? And really, the example that I gave him was, if you put a meal in front of me, I promise I will attempt to eat it. And that would work out great because then he would bring me a plate and put it in front of me and I would eat, where it took out the layer of deciding what to eat, trying the energy to try to cook it, right? All of these different things. And so sharing examples like that can be really helpful for my patients. Even though my journey is not the same as their journey, it really does bring that whole, I understand somewhat of what you're going through. And I know a lot of patients really appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's that practical aspect of the advice that you bring to your patients as well, I think, which is something that they would find really helpful and tangible as well. But I would love to hear your perspective. Perhaps someone may be thinking of specializing in an area. So it could be another area outside of cancer nutrition. And from your perspective, if they haven't struggled with the condition or haven't had a diagnosis but they're very passionate about an area, what advice would you have for them to get to know the ideal clients a little bit more?
Yeah, this is a really great question because I have experience in both these areas, right? Where I wasn't my ideal client before and now I am essentially. Now, first
Mhm.
and foremost, I truly believe that you can be an expert and really bring a lot of passion to it without having to go through that diagnosis. Like I did feel that prior to being a cancer patient. My biggest recommendation would be listen to what your patients have to say. As a cancer patient as well, I'd also encourage people not to pretend to ever know what they're experiencing, but really bring to the, I can't imagine what you're going through, right? And really being open to listen and hear the words that they are saying and hear the problems that they are expressing. And I still do that even though I'm a cancer patient because we are all different, right? How I respond to something as a breast cancer survivor might be different how somebody else responds to it. And that's what I'm still trying to do as an owner of a private practice is what are my patients saying? And what I've said before too is that although I'm like my ICA, I'm not because I did have a lot of knowledge coming to my cancer diagnosis where a lot of people don't. So I would say really listen to what they have to say, ask questions if it feels appropriate. And the reason why I say that is because, at least in this cancer space, I do think it can be a very sensitive is the right word, but it can be a really sensitive topic, especially when nutrition is involved, because a lot of guilt and questions come into play. Did I cause my cancer? That's not true. That's never going to be the case. But listening to your patients and trying to understand where that comes from about their condition or their disease. Do they feel guilt surrounding it? Do they feel like they could have done better? And trying to essentially squash those things and help them with where they are now and where they can move forward. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I love that advice. It's really going in with that curiosity, understanding why they've got certain preconceptions or myths, maybe things that they've been told or read online that they felt, oh, did I cause my own cancer? Is it my fault? What I've eaten? Is it going to impact on the next generation? And they're going to have so many questions in their head. And I think yeah, I really agree with the advice as a health professional going in, just being so mindful of what you're saying to them, making sure there's no judgment in that. And what I love you said earlier, you said using the terms like, I can't imagine what you're going through. Because sometimes we would say, it just comes out, oh, I understand what you're going through, but we don't because we haven't had the diagnosis. So flipping it a little bit and going, I can't imagine what you're going through. It's just going to bring so much comfort. Sometimes you don't have to say so much. You just have to listen, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because I think a lot of times when we are talking to other people about our condition and so forth, is we're not trying to have, we don't want them to fix it. We just want someone to hear it. And I think that as dietitians, there is that level of counseling that we're doing. A lot of people focus on that in part of their practice. And some of what I do is just listening and trying to tell patients, I hear you, I see you. And that alone can be life changing for a patient just to be heard rather than, and in some cases, like there are oncologists or oncology professionals, they kind of just brush by something because unfortunately a lot of their patients experience it, right? Oh, you're having mouth sores. Oh, well, everybody does. So sometimes the oncologist will just move past it like it's no big deal, but it is really impacting that one individual, whatever the side effect or symptom might be, if that makes sense. So and what I can do as an oncology dietitian in private practice is I get to spend that time with them, right? I get to listen to them and hear that. And I think that's what a lot of people really like too, is that they get to have the time where they don't get to have time with other people. And you can show that you really do care about what they're going through.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective on that. Alison, whilst we're on the topic of giving your clients and your patients the time and the space to share, I would love for our audience to, if you don't mind, give us as an insight into your business right now. How do you serve your clients and create an environment or a container where they feel heard, seen, and supported?
Yeah, absolutely. So over the years, my business has transformed greatly. And I think that's one thing about private practice and your business is to always know like how it looks today can be very different than how it looks tomorrow or years down the road. Currently, my offerings are a group coaching program, a one-on-one coaching program, and then I also have a membership type program that is for anybody that has completed either group coaching with me or one-on-one coaching. And so it really is a continuation of services. I don't have the membership on the front end. I only have it on the back end of the programming, meaning they have to complete the programming to get to that point. And inside the group coaching program, they do have an online course. So everybody that goes through the group or the one-on-one gets the online program that I've created. And I also talk about how that's where I do a lot of the education. And it doesn't mean that I don't do education during the coaching sessions, whether it's group or one-on-one, but inside of that course, it's where I'm doing a lot of the education that I'm teaching many of the same things over and over again, right? So for example, the common topic in cancer and nutrition is sugar and carbohydrates, right? So I have very in-depth lessons going through the science and understanding of carbohydrate, sugar, and cancer risk. So it doesn't mean that we won't talk about that during group coaching, but I might tell a patient or the group, we talk about it a little bit, and I might say, go back to lesson 15 where I dive in deeper in that. Then you have the ability to hear it again, pause, etc. So I really like having that aspect of the group coaching or the curriculum there because we can always refer them back. And they really appreciate being able to have that because I also have a lot of handouts, PDFs, actionable steps, different things that they can go through and work through on their own there. And then in the group coaching, there's a group community and then also the live group coaching sessions. And honestly, I know I'm biased because it's my program, but I do think that the group coaching sessions are where a lot of the deep work happens. And that is because not only am I there, but they're there with their peers that have gone through a similar experience. And again, I go back to your journey is not their journey or mine, but we have shared experiences. And this is where a lot of the questions will come up and a patient will say, wow, I didn't realize I had that question, but I do have that question. And I'm so glad that you asked it. So that's the feedback that I get a lot from my clients in the group is that they love hearing what other people are asking. And then also being able to have that support to help be able to understand. And because of my own breast cancer diagnosis, I do attract a lot of breast cancer survivors to my programming just naturally because of my story. However, I have lots of clients that have a variety of different diagnoses. For example, yesterday, I had a one-on-one with a patient that's in the group, but she's a multiple myeloma patient, right? And I asked her, is it hard for you that there's a lot of breast patients right now? And she's absolutely not. We all have these shared experiences, and it's been helpful to experience and hear what they're going through and for them to hear what I'm going through because they are related. So that group support, I think, is really instrumental for the program itself. And then the one-on-one, the way I have it structured is that they get those individual sessions with me, but they also get the online curriculum. They have full access to join the group coaching sessions. I will say most of my one-on-one clients will dabble in the group coaching sessions. They don't show up every time, but they're a little bit here and there, and they really do want to be able to focus on that very specific one-on-one time. And I tell them during that time, like that time is for me to focus on you and what you need out of this. So those are my two main programs. And then the membership comes after that. And I've had my membership now, I think it's coming on, it'll starting its 4th year. And I have clients that have been in there since the very start. And it's so cool to see. And just this group that's been made and everyone's so supportive. So I love it because they're just also supportive of even me. And so I always tell them that it's not just me teaching, everybody is teaching in the group. And I appreciate, and I think that's why a lot of clients come and stay is for the group support.
And that was exactly what I was going to say. They come work with you in your group program or with you one-on-one, and they stay for the community. And that is the beauty of a membership in a sense. And I often get questions from dietitians because there's a lot of different models out there for online digital products and programs. There is online courses that's self-paced. There is group programs. There is one-on-one, and then you've got memberships, and then there is low-cost digital products as well. And often people, especially health practitioners, right, we get so confused around which one we should create for our business. And I think that any model will work depending on how you work it in your business. And I love how you've set out your offer suite to target people with different needs in your program, because you've got those who would need more individualized attention. So you've got an offer that will suit them. And then you've got the group program, which serves the majority of your client. That's your main offer in your business as well. I want to dive into the group side of things and ask a question, Alison, around the resistance that people may have in joining a group program, because group programs, we know it's great as a practitioner, they get to build that community. But do you hear any kind of objections from people saying, oh, I don't want to be in a group, I'm shy or whatsoever? Tell us a little bit more about what you've heard.
Absolutely. I'd hear that. I'm like, I just don't know if I want to be in a group setting. And I think that's so common. I have before offered the online curriculum as just the online curriculum where they could purchase that and not the group coaching. And I've debated back and forth about that pretty often about should I just offer the course if people need a lower ticket offer or that's just how they prefer it. Honestly, when I've offered it like that, more people choose the group. And the patients and the clients that come into the group that have that first objection of, I don't know if group is right for me, but maybe I'll come to the sessions and I'll just sit in the background. More often than not, I always get the response of, wow, I'm so glad I did the group because I didn't realize how helpful it would be. And I think I have some of my own hesitations about that sometimes too, going into a program that it has a group setting, but you do learn so much more from the group. And I think in my situation and my programming, even honestly, it's not even necessarily the nutrition support that comes from the group. It's the mental and emotional support that comes from the group because they get to talk about their shared experiences. So yeah, there's hesitation that comes into it. And I usually preface it by saying, actually, when I survey my audience and I survey my programming, their favorite thing, and this is true, their favorite thing is the group coaching, and it's not what they expected to be their favorite thing.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that tip there. And I know it's a common one because it comes out a lot in our coaching calls as well when we talk about how practitioners, business owners can anticipate those objections coming out. So in your marketing and your free content on social media, on your sales page, when you're in a sales call with people, just start to talk about that, knowing that an objection's not a bad thing. They just have doubts. And if we can share with them how it's helped other people and how it can help them too, I think it will be really powerful for them to see that it's something that can really support them as they navigate this journey. Yeah, thank you. And I think that group programs are great for clients in the oncology nutrition area when we can create that supportive environment. And I also think that for health practitioner itself, for you, it's also so much more time efficient as well because we've only got one Alison. We're going to admit it, right? We can't stretch you too far. And you've got two little ones as well. And so from a time point of view, it just makes so much more sense for you to be able to serve from one person to many people that you're helping at one time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Awesome. All right. So you've got those three offers in your business. And not too long ago, about 3 months ago now, you had a record breaking launch for your group program. So I wanted to take our listeners behind the scenes a little bit to hear about that launch itself and the lead up, what you did, and then what the result was. So would you mind just stepping us through how you smash your goals for that launch?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was my first launch that I had really truly done since being diagnosed with cancer. So I had done launches before. So that is really what the difference, I would say, looking outward was from my previous launches. And so this launch, I think my mindset was totally different about it. The reason for is because in the past, I have to get it right. I have to get it perfect. I have to have this and this done in order to launch. And this time around, I was like, I'm just going to put it out there, right? I'm going to put it out there for what it is. I've worked hard on it already. I'm just going to do it. So there were things that I definitely tweaked from the previous time to this time. And that is my sales page. I'm really focusing on, again, some of that. What is my audience asking for? What is my audience saying? And what I did leading up to this is I actually did a survey on my email list. I also offered it in social media, but I really sent it out to my email list. And I created just a simple Google survey that really asked, what are you struggling with? If I could wave a magic wand, or you could wave a magic wand and all your problems would be solved, what would that look like? And what are your biggest obstacles and struggles? And at the end of that, I was hoping to have 20, maybe 15, maybe 20 people respond out of my email list. And I got almost 120 responses. And to me, that was like, wow, I can't believe people are actually like taking the time to do this. But I do think the biggest thing that changed was that I offered a freebie at the end. So in my situation, I ended up offering one of my, essentially something that was already involved in one of my programs. It was a safe cookware guide. So a lot of cancer patients are, okay, what type of healthy cookware should I use? And I already have this guide created. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll incentivize them by giving them a freebie. And I think that was really the biggest thing, is once they click submit, they were directed to a downloadable link of the guide. So I do think that incentive to get them to fill up the survey was huge. And with that survey results, I really wanted to see, what does my audience want, right? And I think one of the challenging parts for me is what your audience thinks they need, but what they actually need. But it's also about marketing towards what they think they need, right? Because that's how they're coming to your offer. They are coming to your offer thinking, I need a meal plan. Where like, I've done meal plans in the past. They don't need a meal plan. People don't follow meal plans. But I do have one in my programming, right? So I'm still offering one that's there, right? But then I'm actually using that exact terminology that they are saying in the survey as part of my sales page, as part of my copy on the checkout page, whatever it might be. So I think that was one huge difference.
That is so clever, and definitely made the big pivot for you as well, just understanding the language and infusing that all throughout your marketing. And so I just wanted to bring our listeners back to focusing on the need to understand what really bugs your ideal client, what keeps them up at night, what frustrates them, or what their biggest fears are, especially for someone living with cancer or having gone through treatment. We really need to get in their brains and their hearts to understand what they're going through. So it just helps to create that connection and relatability in your content. And I love the tip that you shared there about how you incentivize them to fill out the survey, because people get so many emails every single day. What's going to entice them to even click to spend that minute or 2 minutes to fill out something for you? So if someone is listening to this and they're wanting to do some market research to get to understand the ideal client, incentivizing them with something small that they would find helpful, I think that is a really good kind of little carrot dangling at the end of it. It doesn't take too much of your time to do that because you've already created it. Or if you feel like you are brand new to the area and just really want to get to know people, offer a call or something for someone who fills out the survey, so you can just really ask deeper questions to dig in and understand what their struggles are. But yeah, Alison, thank you for sharing that tip with that survey. So what happened next?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got everything set up, and actually, I've been using your VA services since the beginning of the year that helped with this. And the VA that I work with is amazing. And one of the things that really helped, that you helped me with too, is really delegating some of those tasks of the launch. And I think for so long, I've been doing it solo that when you're like, you can give this to the VA, I was like, what? Duh, of course I could, right? So I think there was a mindset shift there in preparation of, what do I actually not need to do? So some of my work now has been, I take a Google Doc and I put the copy down, right? What I wanted to say, but then I'm sending it off to somebody else to design it. And I think once I got really comfortable with realizing that they can design better than I can, that saves me a lot of time. So I was able to focus more on the copy of things rather than necessarily how things looked. So I do think that was huge for my launch, is being able to delegate. I think there are more things that I can delegate. I'm still constantly working on that. Alison, you don't need to do this task. Sometimes it's not necessarily that I don't think other people can do a good job, but it's like, oh, but I could do it. So why would I send it off? So that has been really helpful. Does an oncology dietitian need to do this task? If the answer is no, then I try to send it off. And so I still have some work to do around that, but I keep reminding myself, remember how helpful that was, or remember how good of a job they did. So that I think was really huge. And then what I will also say is what I did differently here, and we worked on this together, was that the bonuses that I offered were really, I like the word that you use, juicy. And so I think that the bonus was really helpful to incentivize people to purchase. Of course, I think the program itself is great and I get a lot of awesome feedback on it. But I think so what I offered was if they purchased during the webinar, with the first 5 people that purchased would get a one-on-one 60-minute call with me. And I think that was a huge offering because the one-on-one programming with me is a lot more costly. So it was like hey, get your questions answered in this 60 minutes with Alison. And I don't normally offer that one-off 60-minute session. So I think that was part of it. And then I also offered if they purchased on the webinar, they would get a 3-day food log nutrition analysis. And how I actually do that nutrition analysis is that they have to fill out their food log, be as detailed as possible. I always tell them. And then I run it through my nutrition analysis and I make recommendations and I send them a video of their food log and my recommendations, etc. So I'm not showing up live to meet another person. And for me, that was potentially going to be incentive enough to help someone purchase. And I really think that it made a huge difference. So I had those specific incentives to buy sooner than later. And what was interesting about this launch is that I had more people than ever purchase on the webinar or like on that same day, and less people buy like the last day. In my previous launches, there was like crickets in the beginning. And then as the cart's about to close, there's more people that are purchasing. This time it was like more of the people in the beginning and then less when a cart was about to close. And I think that goes back again to the incentives and bonuses that I offered initially. And some of those bonuses were going to expire.
I really want to take some time to break it down here and all the juicy stuff that we did to create the urgency. And I hope our listeners are taking notes, but often here, a lot of people say that launching is so stressful. Like when I launch, it's crickets, no one buys, and it's so scary to have a direct open cut on the webinar for people to purchase directly, because what if no one buys? And so I want to spend some time just giving our listeners some tips as well, taking a leaf out of your experience and how you did this launch. So first thing first, we had a quick action bonus or a fast action bonus on the webinar itself. So we offered them the one-on-one call with you, and you had a limited amount of spots as well, because we talked about how we didn't want an influx of people buying it and Alison's going to be stuck with a whole ton of one-on-one calls. So you had a limit. Was it 5?
Yes, it was 5.
And we just can learn from this, knowing that people really value having that one-on-one access to you. But you can still do it in a way where it doesn't burn you out, so you wouldn't have that huge influx of calls. Yeah, so that's the first juicy bonus you offered. And the second one was that food and symptom diary review that you did for them. And it's so clever because you're not needing to spend so much time one-on-one and face-to-face on the call reviewing that. You are getting them to record it and send it in, and then you could do it at a time that works for you. And you do it through a Loom video, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, a Loom video, and then we sent it to them. So that's such a good use of their time, and they get to listen back, pause it, listen to what you say, and listen as many times as they like. So yeah, those were the 2 juicy bonuses that you offered, which incentivized a lot of people, obviously, to jump on and take on that opportunity. So how many sales did you make on webinar number 1 and webinar number 2?
Oh, I didn't write that data down of 1 versus 2.
Through on the webinar itself combined, how many sales did you get?
Yeah. So on the webinar combined between the 2, I had 10 sales. So it was truly 5 on the first and 5 on the second. Actually, it was 6 on the second, and I just decided to offer that person the same thing. But so I had 5 on the first webinar, 6 on the second webinar, and then I had a remaining 5 purchase between the webinars and the cart close. So my goal was to have 15 students, and I had 16 students. Yes, it was 5. So I offered 2 webinars this time, and it sold out. The first 5 sold out on the first webinar. And I remember asking you, like, what if they all sell out? What should I do on the second webinar? You're like, well, it's up to you. But then I ended up offering 5 more. Those all sold out too.
Yeah.
So I think that was huge. So that was really helpful. And the breakdown of that was actually I had 12 pay in full and 4 with the payment plan. So I offer 4 monthly payments because it's a 16-week program. And I think my learning from that is with so many people doing the pay in full means I can increase the price of that program because that percentage of people were paying in full right away. So that was one takeaway that I had, that there were so many people that just paid in full that I could probably increase the price of that program.
I think in the early stages when we were strategizing pricing as well, we were a little bit nervous about the price point, but you never know. And sometimes we make assumptions, or it could be just what we bring in terms of our money blocks into our business, or that fear that no one's going to pay. But there you have it, like the data, the metrics that speaks volumes. So we can learn from this experience, knowing that, yeah, people are happy to pay in full. They've got the
Yeah.
money
Well,
and they
and
will invest it in something that is important to them.
absolutely. And I'll also add to that, the previous launches that I did with group coaching, my price point was $597. This one, the price point was $997. So you remember how nervous I was. I was like, wait, what? Like, you want me to increase? And so for me to even see that I went from $597 to $997 and still hit my goal and one more than my goal, that was really helpful for me to see.
Yeah. And a great reminder that you've got it. You've got a great program that you've done a really good job in conveying the value of during the webinar itself. And that's why you had so many people jump on board. So incredible effort. Now, can we just share with our listeners how much you made from this launch?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So for this launch, I made 16,364 between the pay in full and the 4 monthly payments. That was so helpful for me, just especially because I hadn't had a live launch for a while because of my cancer treatments and everything like that. So that influx of cash was really helpful for my business. Now I've had one-on-ones since then. I do outside projects. So I did have some income and revenue throughout there, but this was a really great thing. And honestly, it was a confidence booster to be like, oh, I can do this again and I can do it better and I can still have that. I don't rely on live launches making my revenue, right? I have other things that I'm focused on too. And that is one thing that I've always debated about with live launches is, okay, you have this big influx, right? I mean, it's part of my revenue and my goals, but it's not like the thing that I count on all the time. So to me, that's a really good balance of being able to have this influx of cash come through with the launch while still being able to make my revenue goals outside of that, because I'm still making money outside of those launches. And so that feels really good. It's a good balance for me and how I look at my finances for the business.
Yeah, and you have done such a great job in building up your offer suite as well, which is the one thing that we teach a lot of business owners to do as you grow and scale your business. So you're not just relying on one consult, you've got different ways that people can work with you and you're meeting them where they're at. So if someone wants more one-on-one support, you've got something to offer them and it's a higher price point because it's using up more of your time and you're more dedicated and focused in that individual. So it's great that you've done that. And then you've got the cash injections coming through from your launches itself. And the thing is, some people would say that launching is stressful. Launching is exhausting. And for those people who are listening to this and going through the launches at the moment, you're probably listening to this and going, oh, it's an emotional roller coaster, right? So tell us how you navigated that stage. There's obviously got to be highs and lows. Let's not lie about it because it is a big energy investment as well. So how did you manage during that period?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do think launching can definitely be stressful and exhausting, and not to say there isn't any attached to it, but I would say that after doing a few launches before this one and then this one, like it was so much more relaxed than the previous ones. And I think what really helped me was the VA help. That was huge. Having that help, that it wasn't just me, that was huge. The other part was I do think experience helped with that from the standpoint of I knew what to expect a little bit. I will say one of the things that I would change from this launch to next one is it's actually funny, but personal, is that I would have like a meal plan already set up for my family from the standpoint of like my husband does do cooking and stuff like that, but have him set, okay, this is the meal plan, because he's really good at being like, okay, this is the recipe or that's for dinner. it sounds silly, but that would have eased some of my stress a little bit more when it comes to launching, is like knowing that part of my life is taken care of and not feeling guilty about, okay, I have to do this. So I would say that would be helpful. The other part is that when you relaunch, you already have a lot of this stuff set up and you're just going to tweak it a little bit towards that next launch. And so when I was preparing this launch, I actually had that in mind the whole time, right? Don't just use it for this launch. You're going to be using some of these assets for next launch. So that helped me think about it differently and how I might phrase the copy, et cetera. But I will say that I think what's really important when it comes to launching is having some mechanisms in play that help with your stress reduction, right? So I made sure that I was exercising and walking, not glued to my computer 24/7. And also, again, having that VA support was helpful because I knew that there was somebody else that could be monitoring the support emails if there was questions coming through, et cetera. So I would say that I think that the launching can be very stressful, but you can also try the best you can to be like, it is going to be what it is, and I'm going to let it go as much as possible. And one thing that I've said on my webinars before is that technology errors happen, like glitches happen. And I tell the people on the webinar initially, I'm human. It's going to happen. It's going to be bound to happen. I just appreciate anybody bearing with me. And so putting that out there and being like, I am human. There is a person behind this rather than just like this automated thing. I think that really helps too. And that put my mind at ease is that they know that I'm a human and I will be responding to their essentially customer service requests, but know that there's a person behind this. And I think that helps me with my mindset.
I think a lot of people are very used to the idea of attending webinars nowadays in 2024. Since the pandemic, there's been a surge of webinars and things like that. So people would have gone to that. But where I think makes the biggest difference in terms of getting engagement with your crowd is really just taking that time to build that connection, right? If you've been to a previous webinar, think about what would have enticed you to stay and to engage, ask questions and things like that. And it helps for them to know that there is someone on the other side who's going to answer their questions, who they can relate to the stories, someone who's credible versus a webinar that you go to, maybe they just power through the whole time myself. Thinking about value and building that connection. And then when it comes to the selling part, I think that's where a lot of people get quite stressed out as well. What do I say? Well, I feel really uncomfortable. So making sure that you've taken that time to practice that transition into sharing what your offer is about. And just really use that opportunity because you've spent like 30, 45 minutes teaching and building that connection, knowing that it's totally okay for you then to go on to offer them the next step of what they can do. Explain to them how you can help them to solve their problems and get them to the goals that they want to achieve, and not to feel bad about it because someone genuinely needs help. That's what you're there for with your expertise. So yeah, definitely spending that time practicing the sales pitch. But Alison, I really love all the tips that you shared, the practical, the business and marketing side of things, but also the home life as well, because we are humans. We have got multiple roles. We're business owners, and for a lot of women, like we might have kids, we need to do house chores and things like that. Yeah, I love the idea about the meal plan and just getting really practical. And for me, when I launch, I purposely will plan an afternoon off on a Friday to go to the spa and just relax, because we need to first fill our cup before we can show up with the energy that you need to bring to a launch to fill other people's cups. So really practical tip there. Thank you, Alison.
Absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, thank you for sharing with us about your launch and your business. Now, I want to step our listeners to the next part, which is about growing and scaling. So you talked about the VA support that you got. And for those people who don't know, we do have a VA agency that specializes in helping health practitioners, and it's called Digital VA Concierge. It's another business that I started last year, but we've become more open about it this year because we've just seen that need, and I just had to really upskill my team to support our clients. And I want to ask you about this because a lot of people may be going, I can do everything on my own, right? I know how to do it. Why pay someone else to do it? So there were some things that we chatted through in the beginning about how it can help you when you start to get some support in your business. So what were some of the mindset blocks or hesitations that you have when it comes to getting some support and letting someone else into your business, which is our baby at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of the hesitations and objectives are always going to commonly be similar. The first one is cost, right? Paying someone else when you could do it. But I think it was really that shift is that I think of cost, not just fiscally, but also the mental, emotional cost that comes with something. So, for example, if you could hire someone to come and clean your home, right? Yes, it costs money. Yes, it's something that you could do. But okay, let's just say you're going to pay them, I don't know, $50. I'm just making that up. But you could spend that time either working on your business, making that money back and more some. Or you could also spend that time with your kids and your family and not cleaning the bathroom over the weekend when you actually potentially have the time to do it. For example, I think my husband mostly thinks of costs as fiscal costs, where I think of costs not just as fiscal, but also mental, emotional tie to it. So I think it was really that mindset shift of this isn't me just paying money for someone to do something. It's freeing up my mental and emotional energy so that I can be more creative and do the tasks that I really need to do. And most importantly, serve my one-on-one and my group coaching clients better than I possibly could, right? If I have the stress of these other tasks, I can't serve them as well. So I think that was one big, huge mindset shift. And I think that I can always do it better. Honestly, the VA that I work with they do so many more things better than I do. And how they talk to the clients, I'm still in awe. And I'm like, wow, you are so good at this. So I think that has a lot to do, obviously, with the person, but the training that you guys have done in the background to train them to say the right words, to have empathy for my clients that are responding. So I think it's really that mindset shift of what if they could be better than I am at this? And chances are they probably are, right? Because we all have weaknesses, we have strengths, but if we can really allow our strengths to shine and then let our weaknesses essentially someone else shine in that area, there's so much benefit. So I would encourage people to look at not just the fiscal value, but the other value that comes with it, mental, emotional, your time freed up to work on other parts of your business, or for me, to spend time with my family. And I think back to creating a business, that I created a business so I could have freedom, so that I could play my own schedule and do those things. And if I'm doing it all myself, I'm going against what I wanted to create. And I think the other thing that actually transformed my thought process too is my grandmother passed away in April, and I was able to spend so much time with her because I had my own practice, I had my own business, and she was in an inpatient hospice facility, and I was the one that got to be there all the time. And this was leading up to my launch. So
Just
I had a
before your
launch coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I knew that certain things were being taken care of. And my grandma was very healthy before that. So like it was an unpredicted event that had happened. And I had things in place and people working in my business that could help me during that time. And then there's one thing that I said to my grandmother while I was in there that I think about constantly now. And that is, my grandma would say, she'd ask me to come to her bedside and hold her hand. And I would be like, oh, I can go do that. And she would say, okay, now go back to work. You go work. You need to work. And then I said to her, I said, Nana, I control my business. My business doesn't control me. And she was like, wow, that's beautiful. To some extent, that wasn't completely true at that time. Like I was letting it control me in several ways. So when I'm thinking about my business now and how I'm growing, I think about that conversation that I had with my Nana, because she was like, wow, that's so cool. And I was like, okay, that's not entirely true. How do I make that entirely true statement? And so that is something that I've focused on moving forward, is that my business doesn't control me. I control my business, and having the support of other people helping me allows me to do that.
That is so powerful, Alison. I'm getting goosebumps just listening to this, and I'll try not to tear up on the podcast. But it's moments like that that just defines what we live for, really. You know, I talk about my family, my daughter a lot, because they are my why. And for everyone who started our own business, we all have a bigger one. Otherwise, we would be an employee getting a comfortable salary page or wouldn't be going down the tougher road of becoming an entrepreneur. And I think at times it's so easy to get so carried away with doing the work, right? That we lose touch with the reason why. And for you, it's having that flexibility. Yes, it's going to eat into our expenses a little bit when we outsource, but what is it going to buy back for you? That quality time with your family, the ability to be by your nana's bedside. I think it's time that you can never, ever buy back again. So it is insane, not insane, but I'm so glad, Alison, that you got to spend those last moments with her. So you've got something, memories that you can really carry with you for the rest of your life and the driving force behind your business. And now you're thinking, how can I work smarter and control my business even more? And you're looking at ways to get even more efficient with what you do. And
Absolutely.
that is the crux. As you scale your business, you cannot double the amount of time you're working your business to double your income. It doesn't work like that anymore. It's thinking about what are some things that you can do to 5x, 10x your business and work smarter and get the help that you need, the support you need, looking at your offers and all of that so you can make more without becoming a slave to your business. So I am so appreciative of you for sharing that part, because I think it really is such a good reminder for everyone to just come back to our why and think about what really matters to us in business and why we are growing this business. Right? Ultimately, it's not just about the money. It's bigger than
No,
that.
honestly. And I do want to share a little tidbit about that too, is that I'm not the only person in my family that runs their own business, but I was the only person that was able to be there at her bedside like that. And that was because number one, I value that and I chose that, but I also have intentionally tried to create a business that would allow that. And honestly, I do think, and I don't want to make everything about cancer, but I do think cancer has shaped that in me. It isn't about the money. If it was about the money, honestly, I would have stayed in that financial field and taken that first job offer that I had, right? Like I would have made significantly more money. If it was about the money, I would have done that. But I knew I wasn't happy. I knew that didn't feel right. I didn't want to be sitting in the cubicle all day long doing those number punching tasks, essentially. And so I reflected on that while how I'm the only one here right now. She was surrounded by family in the evening times, but I was the only one there during the day. And I was like, this is why I do this, right? I get to go pick up my kids from school every day. And it doesn't mean that if someone doesn't, that they're a bad parent, but that's what I value. So what I encourage people to think about is what is important to you, because what's important to me might not be important to them, but what's important to them, and how do you set up a business that still allows that to happen? And I'm not saying that I'm perfect and that my business is perfect, but I am constantly thinking about those things when I set up systems or make decisions in my businesses. Honestly, it's not a lot about the finances. Would I like to be financially rewarded greatly? Sure. But my time, my experiences, my moments with my kids and my family, that's what this is all about. And I think that's what it's all about for my patients too, right? I always tell people it's not really about nutrition. Nutrition is just the bridge to help get us to what we want to do, right? Having the energy to do that, having the quality of life to do that. That's why nutrition and oncology nutrition is so important to me, because it allows my clients to do what they actually want to do, whether they are a stage 4 thriver and we're trying to focus on quality of life, or they are in survivorship and they want to do all these things, right? Make your business based on your values and try not to build something that you can't handle or that you didn't want. I've reflected on that with my husband at some points is, wow, I built this beast and now I can't handle it. And so like, how do I tame the beast? That beast is my own doing. So I would really encourage people, whether they are thinking about leaving their regular traditional job or they're in that entrepreneurship status already, and is how you run your business reflective of how you want to live your life.
So powerful. Alison, I could just honestly go on and ask you even more questions, because you're such a wealth of knowledge and you have such a heart of gold and you're really generous with sharing. But we also don't want to keep our listeners for too long. And I really enjoyed our conversation. Now, before we wrap up, if I were to ask you for one piece of advice, it's so important for all business owners to know who are growing their business as a dietitian or nutritionist. what would you say to them?
Keep the end in mind and build your business based on that, right? You kind of essentially reverse engineer it from the standpoint, I want my days to look like this, or I want my life to look like this. How do I take action steps that are always building a bridge to get to that step? And I think that is important, because if you know the end in mind, surrounded by the values that we just talked about, I think you can set up a really beautiful business that is profitable, but most importantly, in my opinion, serves your values and what you want out of life, because life is too short, and it's too short to be a slave to your business.
Awesome advice. Thank you so much. I'm sure this has been such a eye-opening, heart-opening, mind-opening conversation that our audience has tuned into today and would have pulled on a lot of heartstrings as well. And for those of you who listened till the end, I really hope that what Alison shared with you, you would reflect on that, ruminate on the things that she talked about, because your business is as strong as your mindset, right? So you really want to continue building that, because it's not easy running a business and there are so many roles and responsibilities. You're pulled in so many different areas, but at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself what matters. And if your business is growing quickly like Alison's and you just can't manage on your own, don't feel bad. Don't guilt yourself into not outsourcing and getting support, because having that extra pair of hands, someone to help you as you know you're asleep, someone's getting something done, and next day you wake up, things are done, and it's such a nice feeling to know that someone is invested helping you in your business as well. Not just your business, but other parts of your home life. I talk a lot about to my clients about outsourcing gardening, I don't know, washing your cars and doing house chores and things. It's the little things. Ironing, that used to suck the life out of me. I enjoy doing it, but not ironing like a whole bucket of clothes and wasting 2 hours. So really being smart about how you use your time, because yes, as a business owner, your time is important. So value that as well. Yeah. So thank you so much, Alison, once again. If our listeners want to connect with you, what's the best way for them to touch base?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me is on Instagram. You can find my handle at wholesome.cancer.nutrition, and also my website, wholesomellc.com. But I'd love to chat with other dietitians, healthcare practitioners to see how they're growing their business and connect. And thank you so much for having me. And it's been a joy to work with you and your VA team. And I can't say enough good things about working with you and the team.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to have you on board as a client as well. I'll be sure to link your Instagram channel and also your website in our show notes so our listeners can connect with you. Thank you, Alison. And thank you everyone for tuning in this week. I'll see you guys next week.